All right, welcome back to our exclusive online Words Matter More segment with the wonderful wordsmith himself, Kel Richards, who joins me now. Kel, welcome. I'm a bit interested in the word, or it's not a word actually, it's denotions, I guess, of time. I grew up knowing AD and BC, told us where we were in and around the birth of Christ. But Aileen from Moyram in Perth says all my life, she's like me, it's been BC and AD. Now we're told it must be BCE and CE. Now, I don't even know what that means. She says, isn't this just religious neutrality gone mad? It's like we're trying to rewrite history. Tell us more.
Well, I think Aileen in Perth is spot on the money here. Go back to our dates and where we get them from. Our dating system was invented by a monk named Dionysius Exiguus in the year 525. The problem he had to deal with was, until then, all the years were dated according to the reign of the emperor, you know, year 12 in the reign of the Emperor Claudius. And the problem was, every time we got a new emperor, you went back to zero. So he was given the task of, give us a continuous numbering series for our dates, which will just go on and won't change when the emperors go on. And so what he did was he decided to start from the birth of Christ. Now, he slightly miscalculated it, but his intentions were good and he got fairly close. And he gave us the numbers that we use today. And he called it, whatever the year was, AD, Latin for Anno Domini, year of our Lord. And that's what we've got. Then in the 1980s, I think it was, in the academic world, there was a big push to get rid of the AD because that sounded too Christian and we needed to get that out of the system. It might offend someone. That's always the excuse that the atheists use. It might offend someone else. Wouldn't offend them, of course, they're just atheists, but it might offend someone. And what they invented was CE, meaning common era. And then for BC, before Christ, they came up with BCE, before common era. But I think they've shot themselves in the foot because they haven't succeeded. They are now claiming a common era began when? When Christ was born. So they haven't actually succeeded in promoting their atheism at all, and I think it's absurd. It actually irritates me. Every time a historian, particularly the ancient historians, use CE and BCE, I think, what rubbish, just AD and BC, that makes sense. But Eileen's right, it's a big push that's going on at the moment.
How widespread is it, Kel?
Amongst academics...
How widespread is it?
Amongst academics, very widespread, particularly amongst people who do ancient history. They seem to be very fond of it. Amongst the general public, doesn't exist at all. I once on my website proposed that we should fight back against this, that every time you write the date on anything, put AD after it, and really annoy them, get up their nose, I suggested.
All right, I'll do that now. From here on in, it'll be 2023 AD on everything. We'll underscore the point we're trying to make. I've got another one for you. This is one of our viewers who wants to know, this is John, why on earth we call the event after a funeral a wake? It sounds like it's a bit of a contradiction, he says. Clearly the dead is not a wake. Why is it called a wake?
It comes from the Irish. And so no bad Irish jokes at this point. It really does come from the Irish. It goes a long way back, 1400s. And the cultural habit was, and until fairly recently continued, whether it continues to this day in Ireland, I don't know, but the habit was to sit up all night with the corpse the night before the funeral. So that was a night spent awake. It was not a night spent asleep. It was awake, not asleep. So that's where it comes. And I gather that while they sat up with the corpse, they did a bit of eating and drinking as well. So it was everyone gathered. And now we've just taken that word, the Irish word, and translated it to the eating and drinking that happens after the funeral. But that's where it comes from. Instead of a night spent asleep, it's a night spent awake.
I suspect with the Irish too, there'd be the rosary beads on the knee and the whiskey at the hand. That's the way
right.
It always goes with a good Irish funeral.
Yes.
Another word that's been put to us to look into tonight, activist. Now, they say, you know, people in the media use it all the time. I certainly use it. I want to underscore that these are people with an agenda. But Alan from Yarrawonga says, where did it come from and when was it first used?
It's not that old. It only goes back to the middle of the 20th century. It's not particularly old at all, and it's actually an abbreviation. The original form was political activist. So every time you're calling someone an activist, you're taking the form that was created in the late 1940s, I think it was, and just shortening it a bit. The Oxford Dictionary's definition of activist, political activist, is interesting. They say anyone who agitates for vigorous political action. So people who are advocating for vigorous political action fall under that definition of political activist. The problem is they've become more extreme. I mean, we now talk about activists as being people like extermination, rebellion people, and they're gluing themselves to roads. They're doing nutty things. So where it might have been once respectable to be a political activist, it's not respectable any longer. They have brought a label which, you know, could be a healthy label. You know, being politically active could be a good thing, and they've cast it into the shadows, I think.
I don't mind agitator. I think the agitators are what the activists once were, but I think activists, you're right, Extinction Rebellion and others, it's taken on a pretty sinister tone. Kel, brilliant as always. Where can people sign up to your newsletter?
The website is ozwords.com.au. Just scroll down the homepage, type in your email address, and you will get a free newsletter from me every day with the word of the day. And if you've got a question, you can either do it through my website or through Peter's Instagram page.
Peta Credlin, AO, you can find me, you can tell us what words or phrases you want us to look into. Of course, you can do all of that with Kel as well, and that will give us fodder for next week. Thank you, Kel. As always, look forward to your company very soon.
Talk to you again.